Hello, good evening and welcome. Tonight on the David Ellis Report, with the military on the streets of Birmingham engaging with the public under the gambit of COVID, I'll be speaking to British Army veteran Dennis Hutchings and former 22 SAS veteran Rusty Firmin about the issue of British military being deployed in what would otherwise be a civilian role.
Yeah, I'm just walking on Station Road now. There's three people on high vis, two in army gear. Good afternoon, how are you doing, guys?
Yes, good, thanks. How are you?
What are you guys doing on the streets, if you don't mind me asking?
Birmingham City Council, we're just supporting them, handing out COVID tests,
For what reason?
just to give people a chance to test themselves in the house.
Can I ask you a question? I'm a citizen of Handsworth and I live in this community. I just want to know, and I'm recording this for my safety and your safety also, why is the need to have the army on our streets and knocking on people's doors and to see if they want to be tested?
We're just here to support the council and hand them out.
But why the army?
Just to support, that's all we're here for, just to support the council and help hand out tests.
But if people want to have tests, surely that's their discretion. If they can go voluntarily to any sort of centres to have tested. So why knock on people's doors?
Just to give them the option. They don't have to take it, they can just take it if they want.
And whose directive is this?
Birmingham City Council.
Birmingham City Council. And where's Birmingham City Council got this directive from?
I'm not sure, sorry.
And also, just to say, if you do come knocking on my door and I refuse, is there any repercussions to that?
Of course not, no, it's entirely up to yourself.
And how do you guys feel? I assume you're part of the British Army?
The Air Force.
You are, the Air Force, yeah? And how do you guys feel knocking on people's doors?
Well, I don't want to answer more questions, but we're just here to support, but thank you.
Yeah, but surely, I mean, you're here to, this is a democratic country that we live in, yes? And it's a free country. Do you not think this is a bit draconian in terms of what you guys are doing?
I'm not answering more questions, sorry, but we're just here to support, but thank you.
So you're only here to support?
We're here to support the
Yeah?
council, yes.
Is there any legal right that you can actually go around knocking on people's doors?
I'm not answering any more questions.
Well, it's not very good. Like I said, I'm not happy as a citizen of Handsworth, and I'm one of the residents around here. And if I do see anybody, any people that I know, I will tell them to refuse to open their doors, because I think it's an absolute liberty of people's civil rights and taking away our freedoms. This is absolute tyranny. Having the army on the streets, yeah? Having the army on the streets. No, listen, I'm saying, having the army on the streets is absolute tyranny.
Right, so we've just watched a video of a gentleman in Birmingham out there in the streets with his smartphone filming British troops on the street handing out COVID kits. And there's quite a reaction in the video, not just from the gentleman filming, where he's raising an objection, but the troops themselves tell a story, obviously. So this is leading on from the last couple of programmes we've done, where we've talked about the call from Tobias Aylward to bring the British military into the civilian arena to assist with the COVID crisis, under the gambit of backfilling the police, where the armed police that were guarding important installations would be released because the military would be going into that role. But what we're actually seeing is troops on the street now in Birmingham. Rusty, what do you think about that?
Well, I suppose they have to have a start point, but I disagree with it. As I've said in my other programmes, I'm not in favour of putting troops on the street in the first instance. If they are required later on, no problem with that. But was it Handsworth they were in?
Yeah.
I think it's notoriously known as a pretty rough area. Why not start there? Use that as a start point. The troops that are going round, and the ones I saw, there was only two of them, a male and a female, who have to go around and knock at door to door. I wouldn't like it myself. I probably wouldn't do it myself. But actually, that is where we are. I saw what happened on the report. All of a sudden, the troops were asked questions from the reporter. They tried to answer them, but eventually they were shooed off down the road and obviously probably couldn't carry on with their task. My point is this: why do we put two troops there knocking door to door with no, let's say, police presence? So if they are harassed by people, that we have somebody within the law that can help protect them and let the job go ahead. Take the troops off the streets, delivering COVID kits. I could do that. Dennis could do that. actually, let's get the guys off the dole. Okay? Get the guys off the dole. Get them, give them the kits, let them go door to door. And if they get harassed, you'll soon find a police presence there to help them. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like anybody's there to help the troops.
There doesn't seem to be. I mean, this gambit of releasing, armed police from guarding important installations and bringing military in to do that, that's something, they could do within reason. That seems sensible. But of course, that's not what we've just seen. We've seen troops in khaki out on the streets with a high-vis vest, knocking doors, delivering COVID kits and collecting COVID kits. With no idea how they're recording that, where it's going, how successful it's been. I'd question its efficiency at the very least.
Well, it's the same old thing. As I said, it's probably a trial. They probably haven't thought it through like most things. They put somebody out there to see how it's going to work, if it's going to work. And really, it doesn't matter. I'll just amend the khaki kit. It was camouflage stuff they had on, but it doesn't make any difference. It's troops wearing our uniform, door-to-door salesmen, almost. Why? Don't tell me that we haven't got other people that can do that. Let them go and do it, and let the troops do what they're good at. Training for their job, not doing day-to-day, knock on the door, salesman. Let others do that.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. Why? Dennis, how do you, if somebody that's, you've obviously served in Northern Ireland, how do you feel about this military in a civilian arena, stroke paramilitary sort of angle that we're now seeing under effectively the cover of this COVID crisis?
It's difficult, I think, and I agree 98% with you, Rusty. Not exactly 100%, but 98% with everything you said. However, I think there are going to be instances where in these areas like Birmingham, Manchester, Newcastle, where they're really under pressure because of the increasing numbers of cases, that they're going to have to use other people to assist to get out kits or carry out testings, as they have been doing in the various parks, using the military. So I don't really see anything wrong with using the military in those areas. And there are plenty of military spare that can do that task. I'm not talking about the frontline troops or anything like that, but there are plenty of others. And like Rusty said, there are, must be nearly 1 million people drawing unemployment benefits who could be used, for one of those tasks.
You can't, I mean, that's a nonsense. There must be a lot of unemployed people in Birmingham that if Birmingham City Council wanted to do this job, that those people could be engaged doing this, if that's what they want to do. I'm not agreeing with what they're doing. I'm just saying if that's what they want to do, there's no reason to be putting military into a civilian arena knocking doors for this.
The only problem with that is that the minute you started using the unemployed, somebody would jump on the bandwagon and say it was against their human rights.
Well, I think we've got to kind of come back to one thing. And Tobias Elwood there obviously is a serving Lieutenant Colonel in 77 Brigade and chairing Defence Committee. So there's two hats going on there. It's both sides of serving Crown, the other side in the military in effect, and as a MP. So there's some fundamental questions there. But he has stated to Boris and in the Commons, I understand, and said that this is a war footing. But we're talking about civilians, military going into a civilian arena in a war footing. What exactly is this guy trying to tell us?
Okay, to look ahead to a war footing is one thing, but let's say the residents of where they are now knocking door to door, let's just say, as we saw in the documentary, start to get fed up with people knocking at the door, trying to give them kits when they're quite capable of ordering one or getting a kit. Why do we have to knock at doors? Because it wouldn't surprise me, half the doors they knock off, they can't speak English. So how are they going to explain what they're going to do? And that's not being funny, that's being true. Yes. I know Birmingham inside out. And the fact is, you try to explain something, and then you get a reporter chasing you down the road, telling you that we're going to tell everybody.
Yeah, he was a civilian with a smartphone reporting.
Exactly.
Now you're going to see a lot of this happen. This is going to escalate because it's a bad recipe. I think it's been badly thought out, the tactics and strategy.
It hasn't been thought out. That's the problem.
Absolutely, this is a recipe for
disaster. And again, I think or believe that we're creating it for them.
Yeah.
All they've got to do now is start complaining. Oh, let's give them some more money. Yeah, I'll take some more money. This is where we are in this country, and it's a shame.
I think Anne Widdecombe summed this up rather well last week, in saying that it was a slippery slope, and whoever got this idea out of the box, it needs putting back in the box rapid.
Yeah,
I agree.
Put it back in the box with the COVID kits. If you want a COVID kit, go and get one.
Go and get one.
Okay.
Well, there's a solution already for that, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, I won't say what I've got, but actually, what if they go to a door and somebody sets dogs on them?
Well, there's loads. The possibilities
it just carries on.
Are endless. It's a bad recipe.
It's a bad recipe, mate. They're not protected. They're walking into different zones. Where's the social distances of 2 meters?
Well, I mean,
you can't knock at a door from 2 meters and speak to somebody.
I just see it going wrong and wronger. So, just talking about bad recipes. So, Dennis, we've just picked up on over the last week a bit of media activities to do with the 15 paras involved with the Bloody Sunday shooting, where the officers are no longer proceeding with the cases because there's no new evidence. But how we're seeing that reported, I'm actually very concerned about, because the reports are, and this is the headline, all right, no more British soldiers face prosecution. Now, if somebody jumped to the wrong conclusions there, they could think that we were all sorted and this was dealt with, and that we've got completely the wrong gambit and we can all stand down. So let's just clarify the situation at the moment, that is just 15 of those paratroopers. It does not apply to anybody else.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. It applies only to the lads from the parachute regiment. Now, as you know, I'm one of the soldiers, ex-soldiers, that's going through the courts in Northern Ireland. There's a group of about 5 or 6 of us now. Those cases have not been touched. As far as everything's happening, they're going through the court as per the system.
I think we need to highlight something that's come out. So I think the good news is, and that is good news for those 15 guys, but the more importantly, they have stopped proceeding with those cases, that there was no new evidence. Now, I think this is something that's fundamental to your case, because when you were arrested, the policeman said to you that there was new evidence.
That's exactly right. I mean, they spent 400. I mean, I can't understand how it got to the stage of with the bloody Sunday thing, having already spent £400 million on inquiries. They knew that there was no evidence there, and then to continue trying to bring charges against the other 15 lads. And the case was thrown out for lack of evidence. I was arrested, as you quite rightly pointed out, 5 years ago in April, and I was taken back to Ireland, and I was told by the policemen who arrested me that they were arresting me because they had new evidence. I was then held in Antrim police station for 4 days and questioned 26 times over those 4 days. And every day, my solicitor, who was representing me, asked the police to produce new evidence, the new evidence. And they never produced anything. And they still, even now, haven't produced any new evidence.
So on that basis, they have not produced, which is their duty to do so if they want to press a case, no new evidence produced under what they've happened there with those paras. By rights, your case should be dropped.
Well, it should be dropped. Of course it should. And so should all the cases against soldiers or service people are investigated. It's as simple as that. If you fire your weapon anywhere in a conflict, then it will be investigated. by the local police, the military police, etc., the SIB, and so on and so forth. And a decision would be made whether to, if you're a military, court-martial you, or a police officer or whatever, then you would go through the court system. Yeah.
Now, I think this is highly relevant because obviously the warnings that Petraeus made at Policy Exchange when he was talking about the lawfare, which is what we're involved with here, with a conflict between Geneva Convention and European Convention on Human Rights, that he mentioned about escalating. If this wasn't stopped, that there was potential for it to escalate. Now, we know, anecdotally, of course, and I think there's some bits of it there that are no longer anecdotal because there are conversations, that the cases are escalating and there are greater numbers in the wings, and this is across numerous regiments. That there are other regiments involved with this, and that's the important thing that for me fundamentally, if there's no new evidence with these paras and that case has been dropped, and no new evidence has been produced with yours, and yet we see the MOD and the other officers in Northern Ireland, where we're seeing large volumes of other regiments with particular elements involved here, where they are continuing with the same tactics they used with you in the initial engagement with other ex-servicemen now here in the mainland.
You know why this is happening? Let's put it in true perspective. This is nothing, my case and the other cases, as far as I'm concerned, have nothing to do with the law. That's gone out the window. These are all political.
Yeah.
And there's somewhere in either the bloody Good Friday Agreement and Tony Blair, where in the small print somewhere, where they're allowed to carry on with the cases, because there's 231 other cases sitting on the desk, waiting to be opened. All these inquiries that's going on at the moment about Loughall, Ballymurphy, that'll all come to the fore eventually. And it's political. And it's purely political because we've got a bunch of politicians, 650 sat in that house, plus the other ones in the House of Lords, who are totally, utterly spineless in dealing with this situation.
Well, I think we've tried to have a bit of interaction with the veteran support group of MPs, so 40-odd MPs that are supposed to be supporting the veterans.
Yeah.
And, we've reached out to them and they've reached back. There's a conversation taking place. But what I want to see happen now is some absolutely positive, this is the situation, this is what we're going to do, and these MPs looking like they're going to do their job.
Be interesting to know how many Labour MPs are on that Defence Select Committee.
It's a veteran support group.
Veteran
Dennis,
support
that
group,
is a very good question. I would love if anybody would help us with that, and then we can put this out as an appeal if you want. If your MP is involved in there, we'd like to know. I think that we've got two things here. If they want to continue with your case, Dennis, and I understand the current gambit is they want to do that.
It's politics
with an online and no jury. Now, as the situation is at the moment, and I've had a good look at this, it is under the Bill of Rights 1688, it is your fundamental right as the law stands, and it's on the statute. Betty Boothroyd has stated this in the House when she was Speaker, that the Bill of Rights is in full force and that you are entitled to a jury for your case. Now, if they don't want to give you a jury, then it isn't a valid court and they need to drop the case.
I totally agree, and so does everybody else.
I agree with that.
But try telling that to Lord Keir, who was running the Supreme Court when I went in front of them, listened to all the evidence, and then awards a judge-only trial, which doesn't just affect me, it affects everybody else that's going to be coming through the system.
Correct. And you've highlighted there that this is not just about veterans. We're talking about a precedent for those serving and potentially for those that want to join up. This is a catastrophic PR manoeuvre for the entire brand of Her Majesty's Armed Forces.
Total.
And I think if there's several ways that we could take this. And I think just as a discussion. You know, if there isn't resolution, if the MPs can't give us a solution to this, then they're not really leaving us much other option than to petition the Crown directly. How do you feel about that, Rusty?
Well, how long do we wait for the politicians? How long's a piece of string? You know, Dennis has been there years and years and years, along with everybody else. So now they've started, and it looks like a bit here and a bit there. Just do the simple thing, the honourable thing. If the judge, I can't remember his name, Dennis, the one who's said that you need a jury, he obviously doesn't know the law then, does he?
Well, one would wonder.
Because it's there in black and white, I believe, that you're entitled.
Well, there was 5 of them, but he was the chairman.
You're entitled to it, and he's saying he's awarding a jury only. What part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think
that is absolute rubbish.
It's a blag because they're trying to replicate Diplock courts, which had parliamentary permission. This does not.
No.
Now, those MPs have got to really. This should be an absolute sitter for them. This is an easy one. Well, hang on a minute.
Next.
That doesn't apply. They've not had permission. Thank you very much. Go away.
Yes.
But it's taken so long what Dennis has gone through. You know, the resolution this guy must have, you know, I'd have probably looked at it a different way. Dennis's heart is here. He's a true Brit. You know, the thing is that after this amount of time, I think Dennis, they're probably frightened to squash it because they'll have to compensate him right into the distance. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if your case alone it probably cost £2 million, £3 million.
It's cost over £2 million.
Well, there you go. What a waste of our money.
And the MOD are already short of money.
Yeah.
And we're talking about mothballing tanks and cutting more frontline troops.
Yeah.
This is an utter travesty of what's going on there. And I think, you know, we can have a conversation about Johnny Mercer and the currently now, but back before he was a minister, he'd stated in select committee that, you know, this was unacceptable. It should never have been allowed to get this to this stage with Stephen Lovegrove, and that the faults that were happening under the IHAT, what word can we use for that? Disaster.
Yes.
That those lessons still have not been learned, and we still haven't put this to bed, and it needs dealing with. But I've got to say that the current bill that's going through, the overseas bill at the moment, doesn't have a magic bullet, I don't think, with this. After talking to General Lord Dannatt yesterday, there isn't a magic bullet in there because it still doesn't deal with these other issues. But I think just bringing one of your peers in at this...
Can I say something?
Of course you can.
I've just read Lord Dannatt's autobiography, Leading from the Front.
Right.
And I'll say this to those generals, admirals and air chief marshals sat in the MOD, right? It's time you got off your backsides and started leading from the front and going to the government and saying, this is finished. You know, we cannot allow you to treat our military like this any further.
Yeah.
But they won't. Lead from the bloody front. That's what you're supposed to do, right? They're not doing it.
And if necessary, do what like Admiral Henry Leach did at the Falklands crisis.
Exactly.
Walk round and knock the door.
Yeah, exactly.
But as you said, Rusty, we don't have Maggie Thatcher at the moment. We've got nothing like...
We've got nothing, there's nothing out there in the future. And I didn't know Winston Churchill, but actually I did know Maggie Thatcher. I don't see anybody that could lace her shoes. Nobody. Because they won't get up, they won't fight the fight, they want to talk the talk. And they will not walk the walk. And that's where we're losing it. Yeah, we'll sign some more paper. Yeah, we'll do some stuff on the internet. Get up, get out, support the troops, and get some answers.
I'm an ex-coal miner from the northeast, right? And I fully support what Rusty's just said about Maggie Thatcher. I think she was a leader. Unfortunately, since she's gone, we haven't had a leader.
Well, there's the irony there. I mean, I don't agree with everything that Maggie did, but a lot of the things that she did were very good.
She led.
Particularly where there were two things that she did. Once the Admiralty had come into play and was functioning, which was dealing with the Falklands crisis, putting a flag back down in the ground that we were not going to have our resolve tested by the Argentinians. And the other very important thing that she did that brings us, you know, that is within our circle of defence in this conversation, was that she vehemently opposed European Defence Union. And there was a veto put in place at that point where she said no to it famously, but has subsequently submarined for 25 years, and we still find that that problem activated by Tony Blair. Now we can come back to that Good Friday Agreement. We're going in a circle again, haven't we? Tony Blair admits to activating European Defence Union. We've got an overlap there, haven't we?
Yes.
There's a dimension here that we need to have, this silence that you've spoken of before, Rusty.
Yeah.
Because this whole defence policy and where the veterans are concerned, and I think we can bring that back to how we started with the troops on the street. The veterans are a major factor within all of this.
Well, it's not just the veterans, it's the ones that's serving now as well. The lads and lasses who are serving the country now.
Yeah, but
You know, this can happen again in 20 years when they...
Well, I think what he's trying to maybe say is that the veterans have a voice because they're so big.
Yes.
And the government are frightened of that. I'm convinced they are absolutely terrified of the veterans and what they'll say when they find out the truth. We say veterans, it's fine because we include everybody on our side of it in that. I'm sure everybody would take that to account. But let's see what happens when the veterans have their say.
Yeah.
And that's why I think silence is golden. We all know that. But it's only golden for the government. It ain't government for us.
Yeah.
We want to know. I don't know about you. You spent a long time, Dennis. I had 27 years in the military. I fought for this country.
26.
And
I did.
now I'm not a politician. I'm trying to state a point which the normal layman, including me, understands on the street. I don't need the mothballs in my mouth when I'm talking. I'm just talking from my heart, my experience, and what time I've got left. I really like to see this country get back up and get the great put back into Great Britain. That I'd be really happy with.